Episode here on Iowa State Cyclones Live on the Voice of College Football Network. I'm Levi Stevenson. I'm also the managing editor over at Wide Right and Natty Light, Iowa State's SB Nation site. Looking forward to being here today. I forgot to turn my ring light on, so that's cool. And today we are going to talk about Iowa State's transfer portal season a little bit, since we are hot in the middle of the winter transfer portal following the regular season and the conference title games. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And then we are going to start talking about the Pop Tart Bowl, where Iowa State will face Miami, the Miami Hurricanes, who, from everything that I've seen online, it sounds like everybody's going to be playing, including Cam Ward, which is a big development that will definitely change Iowa State's game plan for defending Miami just a little bit. But before we get into that, like I said, we're going to talk about Iowa State's transfer portal season. So last week we talked a little bit about the different losses in the portal, talking specifically about guys like J.J. Cole and Kennard Snyder and those ones, and different guys that didn't get to play very much. But since then, we have really not seen much movement in the portal. I don't think we've seen any movement actually in the portal since then, which I think is a huge win for Iowa State. I wasn't expecting anything else. But this list that you can see right there of the portal entries as of last, is the exact same as it was last week, which means that Iowa State has not lost anybody extra to the portal. And I think that is very notable because you've got teams in the Big 12 that are losing, 10, 15, 20 or more guys. I think Arizona's lost over 20. Whereas Iowa State has generally gotten off pretty well. And they have in general through any of these transfer portal seasons so far. They've generally been, I'm not even gonna say lucky, because I think there's a very intentional, there's definitely an effort to recruit the types of guys that want to stick around, and aren't going to just jump at the nearest NIL offer. So there's an intention there about how you build the roster to fit that. But in general, Iowa State has done very well in the portal as far as keeping their talent. And specifically, you look at guys like TJ Tampa, that hung around, Jeremiah Cooper, Malik Verdon, now Dominique Orange is sticking around, Jalen Knoll, Rocco Becht. You look at those guys that all had opportunities to leave and go someplace else, and did not, and are still not. All those guys are confirmed back for next year. Well, Malik Verdon, we don't know for sure, but all of those guys that that can come back next year, that we believe are going to come back, are coming back. The school obviously made a big announcement about getting Rocco back, which was a very intentional PR move, to make sure that, to let everybody know that, your quarterback's going to be back. You're going to have one of the better quarterbacks, one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12 and one of the better quarterbacks in college football. You're going to have him to throw to you. And that has paid off in a couple very specific places. We talked about a lot of these guys last week. There's some new offers in here. I see some different defensive players, Max Marcellus. But Iowa State picked up a couple very important players in the portal over the past week. The first of being Xavier Townsend. Now, Xavier Townsend was originally coming out of high school, was actually a running back commit for Iowa State. Then eventually flipped to UCF, and I believe that was the same class that we saw Cartavius Norton in. Cartavius Norton and maybe Eli Sanders as well. So this guy, he's familiar with campus, he's familiar with all the coaching staff. Now, Xavier Townsend transferred after the fourth game this season to preserve his red shirt, which is interesting. That was not something, I don't know if we'd really ever seen it too much before. Not with a high profile player like Xavier Townsend is. Why that happened, I'm not sure. Maybe he saw the writing on the wall with Gus Malzahn. We'll never know. Or, we will not know while he's at Iowa State or anytime soon, probably. If it was NIL related, there was a thought that it might have been NIL related, which would have kind of surprised me, because UCF, I think, does all right in NIL. And the other part, the other side to that is, if it is because of NIL, is that a guy that Iowa State wants on its roster? If it's someone that's willing to transfer for NIL, is that somebody that Iowa State wants to bring into the culture? Now, obviously, the coaching staff liked him enough coming out of high school to offer him and bring him in. So obviously, they believe he's a good dude, and is a positive addition to the team culture. But that's something that, at least from the fan side of things, I think was a fair thing to ask. I think, anyways, just if it was NIL, I don't know that it was, but that was the thought. Just because of just kind of how college football is right now, seeing a guy transfer after 4 games, that seems like that could have been that. Now that we know that things were kind of on the downhill with UCF this season, and now Gus Malzahn leaving, um, not necessarily being fired so much as just kind of a mutual parting of ways to go to Florida State. It's certainly possible that Xavier just kind of saw the writing on the wall with that and wanted to just say, hey, I'm not going to be here next season no matter what. I'm going to save my red shirt and find someplace else to go. So either way, so Xavier is now in Ames playing on the Iowa State roster. Very glad to have him. He he's a versatile guy. I mean, you could put him at running back, but I would say he feels probably very good about the running back room right now. And they've got a lot of pieces. You've got Carson Hansen, Abu Sama, Dylan Lee, and then you've got a couple other guys coming in this recruiting class that I think Iowa State's going to really like down the line. So my guess is you'll keep him at wide receiver because that's where he's been playing the last couple of years. And he's versatile enough. I just use like generically good examples, but he's very much a Deebo Samuel kind of guy. He's not as big as Deebo Samuel is. But he's very much that kind of guy where you could line him up in the backfield as a running back and get him the ball. He can run downfield routes. You can get him the ball on a deep ball. You can get him on a bubble screen, whatever it is. You can put Xavier Townsend anywhere on the field and you can make him do pretty much anything. And he can excel at that. So it's a very, very versatile piece, much like we saw with Jalen Noel. This is your direct 1-to-1 replacement for Jalen Noel. I mean, honestly, fairly similar size. The thing that Xavier Townsend brings to you is elite speed. His top end speed is awesome. He's a burner, and it's something that Jalen. That's not to say that Jalen Noel wasn't fast, but it's more along the lines of this is elite level athleticism that I would say does not have very often. And I would say he's even probably faster than Jalen Noel was. But this I shouldn't say that was, but is. But this is a guy that he's a game changer for you. If you can get him the ball in space, this guy's a game changer for you. He wasn't like incredibly productive at UCF, but I don't think they used him as well as they probably could have. I don't know what the percentage of it, but a huge percentage of his touches at UCF were on like jet sweeps and things like that, which can be good. They can pick up a lot of yards, but they're not something you want to just rely on. And if they were doing it often enough where teams were able to key on it, where you would start Xavier Townsend in the slot or something like that and have him come over, there's probably a lot of times where the defense was keying on that and was able to slow that down. So I expect to see Xavier run basically the same route tree that Jalen Noel did last year, which is the entire route tree and running mesh routes, running some deep posts, running some goes, things like that, obviously doesn't run a lot of bubble screens anymore. But that would be your guy to throw them to. I don't know what his ability to throw looks like, even though we know Jalen Noel can throw. But it's one of those things. I think this is a great addition. He's super athletic. I think Iowa State will be able to get a lot of use out of Xavier Townsend. I think this is a home run add to the program. He was a 4-star athlete coming out of high school. And obviously Iowa State wanted him. He's a friend of Rocco Beck's, so he fits in there. Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins, it sounds like, were a very big part of recruiting these transfers this week, this window to say, hey, we have 2,000-yard receivers on this team. Rocco will throw you the ball. If you get open, Rocco will throw you the ball. That is a huge thing that Iowa State can sell to a receiver that not every team can. And I think that was a big part of this because fortunately the two big targets, Iowa State's two big receiver targets this portal window basically mimic Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins. We're going to talk about the other one here in just a little bit, but I think Xavier Townsend, is a home run add in the portal here for this cycle. I think this is a great addition. I think right now he's probably your wide receiver 1B, 1A, 1B type of thing, just like Jalen Noel was. I think you slide him right in and you're feeling really good. Trey Bell is a guy, cornerback coming out of Lindenwood High School, or not Lindenwood High School, Lindenwood College. This was another one that another position that I felt like Iowa State um, really wanted to address in the portal, and I think this is a nice player. I mean, it's hard to know because Lindenwood plays down. Yeah, I believe they're an FCS school or a Division two school. Um, it's one of those. I don't. It's hard to sometimes gauge exactly where these guys are at. Um, but he comes in as an 89 transfer ranking, which I think is a big deal. Um, he's got 2 or 3 years to play there. He's just a sophomore, so he's got at least two to play. Um, Real like he's got good size at 6'3", 191. That's good size. Iowa State typically likes bigger corners. I think that's a good spot. You can even if you only pick him up as a depth piece and you have Jontez Williams and then someone that's already on the roster, starting. If you have him as a depth piece early on, I think that's a really nice pickup, especially from a size standpoint, and especially knowing he's got a few years left to go. Um, I'll be curious to see what the what other things Iowa State will do to address corner, because that's really the only position in the secondary of concern. I think they've established safety depth on the roster that they feel fairly comfortable with. Um, Jamison Patton's going to come in. Jeremiah Cooper will be back. Jamison Patton is coming in. He's played tons and tons of snaps for Iowa State already. He's been very good. Tayshaun James obviously had a rough game against Kansas, but then played very well against Kansas State and played, I think, decently well, at least against Arizona State. Even though it was kind of a bad game overall. I think he's played well enough down the stretch where you start feeling a lot more comfortable with him taking starter snaps going into next season. I think that's a guy that you can really look at as being a leader of that, as being one of the leaders of that group going forward. But corner is another one. Jontez is there, and he was awesome. I would say all of Iowa State's corners were very, very good this season. You could maybe make the argument he was he was, on par with Darian Porter as the best corner on the team. He had 5 picks in 5 games or 4 picks in 4 games. He had an awesome season. You'd like to find some depth there. You want to establish a second starter, obviously across from Jontez. Who that's exactly going to be, I'm not sure. If the staff really wanted to, and interesting, this is not, I promise you, this is not any inside info. I think an interesting name, if you wanted to follow the Darian Porter route again, I think it may be worth looking at Benny Nagoye. If you're potentially looking at trying to cultivate some depth in that position room, we've already seen them take a tall, athletic receiver that just wasn't quite cutting it. We've already seen them take that exact archetype of a player that's like a super, super athlete, tall and long limbed, and turn them into a corner, one of the best special teams, maybe the single best special teams player in America, and one of the best corners in the country as well. We've seen them develop that kind of a player out of a tall athletic receiver that's just not quite cutting it for whatever reason on the offensive side of the ball. I promise you I have no intel here, but I think if I were the staff, I would maybe take a look at Benny Nagoye if you don't think he's gonna break through at receiver this offseason, and he's fine with the switch. I think that would be an interesting name to look at. But that's, that I have no intel on that. So that's just kind of my own observation, I guess, if you want to call it, my own conjecture. But I think, honestly, though, I think Trey Bell is a nice addition there. If he starts across there and they feel comfortable starting him across from Jontez, I think it's good. Otherwise, I think at minimum, you have a nice depth piece there. We got a comment from the chat here. Has Matt Campbell finally embraced the transfer portal? I don't think that Matt Campbell ever didn't embrace the transfer portal. I don't think that was ever really a thing where he hated the transfer portal. I just think that Iowa State in general, Iowa State in general has not had to take a lot of guys in the portal because they haven't lost a lot of guys to the portal. So, but for the guys that they have taken, it's very much they've been very picky and choosy about who they take to make, they use it to fill depth spots and to fill holes in the roster, but they don't just take guys to fill roster spots, and especially now that the roster is getting trimmed down a little bit. I don't think Iowa State's ever going to be the team. I don't think Iowa State's, while Matt Campbell is here and still going to be here, I don't think you're going to see Iowa State be a team that brings in 15 guys in the portal. If you bring in, between 6 and 10, I would guess would be the most you would see. Like 10, I think would be about near the top limit of how many guys I think you'd see, I would say, taking the portal, on a normal year in, year out basis. There might be some weird year where they have some guys leave or transfer and they have like a larger number just because of depth issues or whatever it is. Or because you've, guys getting pigeonholed on the depth chart or whatever it is, that maybe you take a little bit more than that, but probably I would say it's going to live in that 6 to 10 range most off seasons. And I think that's a good thing. That helps you maintain roster stability, helps you maintain program culture. I think that's only a good thing going forward if you can keep your numbers that you need to take in the portal down. Next guy up, though, is a defensive lineman from Northern Iowa named Cannon Butler. I'll be honest, I don't know a ton about him. But at 6'6", 241, this is a guy that's, as an edge rusher, I think he's 10 pounds of muscle away from being a really, really nice body to have as an edge rusher. Awesome name. For what it's worth, Cannon Butler is an awesome name. He's went to Waterloo, Columbus, so he's from the area. I think this is a guy that, on the edge anyways, I would say it's going to need some help. The pass rush was not great last season. You're going to lose Joey Peterson. I think there's some guys in the room that they like, but no matter what, you need more pass rush this coming season. And, if this is the guy they're going after, I think this seems like a no-brainer. 6'6", 241 is a really nice size for a defensive end. So I think if they think he has the tape to do it, I really like this addition there, especially from a size standpoint. Okay, here's your other receiver, Chase Sowell from Eastern Carolina. We talked a little bit about him last week. He was originally at Colorado under Deion Sanders and then transferred out once Deion started pushing people out of the program. And then he is now committed to Iowa State. This was one guy that I think a lot of people he had a lot of offers. I know he had, I think, 4 visits planned after Iowa State. I know Florida had offered him, which was a little bit of a scary deal because both of his parents went to Florida. And that is, he's a double legacy recruit there. And obviously Florida is Florida. They have NIL. They have NIL out the wazoo. They have a history of putting athletes in the NFL. But Chase Sowell visited Iowa State last week, had dinner with Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll, and they talked to him and told him, like, hey, by the way, a guy that plays just like you, Jaden Higgins, just went for 1,000 yards, 85 catches for about 1,200 yards here this season. This is a guy that is, like I said, he can be a mirror to Jaden Higgins this season. He's athletic. He's tall. He can run all the routes. He's got good hands. He's good after the catch. I think Sowell and Townsend, I think, is a wonderful duo. We'll see if they're as good as Jalen Knoll and Jaden Higgins were. Yeah, they may not be right away. Sowell is only a redshirt sophomore. Townsend is just going to be a redshirt sophomore next year. He was a true sophomore this year. And then, or he's a true junior. He was a true junior this year, redshirt. So he'll have 2 years to play. And Chase Sowell will also have 2 years to play. So they've got 2 years to gel. I think this is an awesome ad. Chase Sowell was one of the most coveted receivers in the portal, maybe the most coveted receiver in the portal, and Iowa State locked him down. I think this is you were looking this offseason for 2 guys that you can say these are receivers 1 and 2. These guys are going to lead our offense next year. Sowell and Townsend are those guys, and I feel great about those additions. I've gotten a chance to watch a little bit of Chase Sowell's film. He's good after the catch. He's got good hands. He runs good routes. I think this is a guy that's can be a real difference maker in the passing game. So that is currently Iowa State's haul in the transfer portal. Not a lot of guys. They've got 4 commits so far. I think this is one. We'll see what some of these other ones here. You've got a couple edge rush. You got a linebacker here, an edge rusher here from Idaho State. He actually, it looks like he's got an offer from Ohio State too. So that's interesting. We'll see what they end up out of this. But I think there's Riley Wilson is a guy I saw. I saw his commitment or his offer post on I think I was on Twitter and started looking through some of his tape. This guy is like football dude linebacker, 157 tackles over the last 2 seasons. He is a super, super productive linebacker. The um, you know, I he no he was a linebacker for um Montana. They have him listed as an edge here. I think that because I think that's what he projects to at at the FBS level is as an edge. If this guy can be a stand-up edge rusher for you, and he like I said, he had 157 tackles over the last 2 seasons for Montana, which is super productive. That's a great number of tackles. You want to see he's in there, he's making plays around the field. Um, this is a guy I think would be a really, really nice addition. As like kind of a stand-up edge rusher, kind of like we saw Caleb Bacon, not this past season, but 2 seasons ago, in 2023, where we saw Caleb Bacon really break out. I think this is a Riley. I think Riley Wilson is the same kind of guy. I think you really, really want Riley Wilson if you can get him. Yeah, all gas, no breakfast says Logan George looks like a beast. This is a guy. Yeah, now that I'm kind of looking at him a little bit more. I like his size, 6'5", 259. I mean, he's got offers from Ohio State. I really like that. As much as Ohio State's kind of a mess as a program right now, if they're offering guys, we want them to. So, Steven says, "What are your thoughts on the Otts contract extension?" I love it. He's here through. For anyone that didn't see, TJ Otzelberger is extended through 2032, so he's extended for the next 8 years. I think the moves by Jamie Pollard to get both him and Campbell locked up for the next 8 years, I think is a home run. I think because right now you can make an argument that TJ Otzelberger is the best coach in college basketball right now. And not only is he that, but he is like very loyal to Iowa State. He has Iowa State in his DNA. There is no reason to not lock him up as long as you can, because he is going to continue to field very, very good teams here. And I just think it just makes sense for Iowa State to lock that up and say, you're going to be our Coach K. You're going to be our Tom Izzo. He's going to be here for 20 or 30 years and really build a blue blood perennial winner. Because I know that TJ believes that he can win a national title at Iowa State, and he might just do it this year, with how good this team is. Because right now that team has all of the profile rankings. They're in the top 10, both offense and defense on KenPom, which is Final Four. That has Final Four written all over it when you have a top 10 offense and top 10 defense on KenPom. So I think it makes a ton of sense. Basketball has more roster turnover than football. So the knowing your guys are going to be back next year type of thing isn't, it still matters. It absolutely still matters. It's maybe not quite as much of a thing as football because basketball, the roster just turns over so much and there's only so many roster spots. But locking that guy up forever. I mean, I don't think anybody was like afraid that he would leave or anything, but locking him up for another 8 years is great. So, if anybody's got any other questions for this offseason transfer portal type stuff, recruiting, whatever it is, Trey Spivey is another one I've heard from Kansas State. I think he's visited. I'm not sure exactly what that. Yeah, so it said so this says he took visited last week. I don't know. Since we've got Soul and Townsend, I don't know if they're going to take any more receivers. They may not. And if they don't, that's fine. I think you're pretty happy with the two you got. This Ryan Strader is a guy. If they could get Javon Tracy, I don't know if he's still available. Oh, he committed to Minnesota. Okay. Would have been nice to get, but you're perfectly happy with Townsend and Soul. This Ryan Strader, I don't know. See, did he commit? Okay, he's at Auburn. Would have liked to have him for another as far as just another corner to take, but I think you feel great with what you got. Maybe you get one more in the portal, but I think you're feeling pretty good about this. Does the portal close in a week? I believe it closes next week. Yeah. So I think it's like right before Christmas it closes. So we're getting close here. There is one more portal week in, I want to say April after spring practice. There's one more week of the portal. I'm sure we will have people leave then after they find out where they're at in spring ball. But for right now, I think this is, I think Iowa State's got a nice transfer portal class. Maybe you grab one or two more of those edge rushers. Be really interesting to see what they go after here. See how, hopefully Riley Wilson hasn't committed. Nope, that's a different Riley Wilson. Classic. Let's look at this Riley Wilson. Yeah, so he's only grading out as an 80, but I really think this Riley Wilson could be really nice. A really nice edge rusher for Iowa State. So we'll see. But that's I believe all that is currently to be caught up on as far as this portal goes. A nice class for Iowa State. You got your two leading receivers. You got a nice piece at corner. We'll see if they grab any more defensive line or an edge rusher or something like that. So good job for Matt Campbell and staff. So let me grab a little drink here real quick. Everyone can see my dog back here. It's Coco. Now we are going to talk about the Pop Tart Bowl. First up, though, one thing I did want to show is that the Pop Tart Bowl themselves unveiled a new trophy for the bowl game, which I think is just fabulous. Let me pull it up here. It is a fully functional trophy that can act as a toaster. Let's see here. So
Everyone, I have an announcement. Popular. You're gonna be popular.
And it toasts a Pop-Tart even. The stakes have never been higher. I want this Pop-Tart trophy real bad. This thing is fantastic. The Pop-Tart Bowl has done a fabulous job of marketing and just making the bowl game worth watching for neutral parties. So it always draws a good crowd, but I would expect to have a very, very sizable TV viewing audience for the Pop-Tart Bowl for this time around for Iowa State. So, hopefully you go out there and you put on a good show so that way, people can look into next season. If you can beat Miami in this bowl game, you're looking at going into next season as a top 15 type team, top 20, top 15 type team. If you can put on a good showing against this Miami team, because this Miami team, was a fringe, like right on the edge of being a playoff team. They, if you look at metrics wise, they basically are a playoff team. They're a top 15 team in virtually every metric. They've got Cam Ward at quarterback. He is a guy that is probably looking at being one of the top 3 picks in the draft this spring. He's a very, very good player. Started his career at Incarnate Word, and I believe he was at Houston for a little bit and then went to Miami. Really, really nice player. He's done a good job with their offense. I believe they're the number 1 scoring offense in the country this season. How much that's a product of the ACC, I don't know, but they're a really nice team. And like I said, they were already a fringe playoff contender going in, even having not played in the conference title game. This is a very, very good team, and frankly, I think it's kind of a tough matchup for Iowa State. The big issue with Iowa State when you play these teams from the Carolinas and from Florida and stuff like that is that you're playing against some big time athleticism, big time speed. And Iowa State is typically not a super fast team that has lots of speed all over the field. You've got individuals that are fast, but typically you don't see, Iowa State is not a program that's going to have tons and tons of team speed on a year in, year out basis. And teams like Miami, that's what they thrive on, is team speed. Those can present tough matchups because then you have your safeties have to play a little bit deeper, which means they got to stay a little bit further from the line. And that makes it tough. That's a difficult matchup. And, Cam Ward is very much a dual threat quarterback. Those kind of guys have given Iowa State a lot of trouble this year. We saw Sawyer Robertson for Baylor give Iowa State a lot of problems. Then we just, in the last game, we saw Sam Levitt give Iowa State a lot of problems too. So he's a quarterback that makes good decisions. He can make all the throws. He's a good runner. They don't run him like primarily. He's still a passer first and foremost, but he will punish you in the running game if you let him get outside the pocket and don't bottle him up a little bit. So there's no two ways about it. This is a difficult matchup for Iowa State. It's not one that they can't win. Currently Miami, I believe, is sitting at a 3.5 point favorite. So it's not anything, insurmountable. Iowa State has overcome much larger deficits than this before. They've beaten better teams. But it's a difficult matchup against arguably, well, not even arguably, against the best quarterback that Iowa State will have played against this season. Now, what's worth noting is that Iowa State is probably the healthiest they've been. Now, I say that with caution because we also said that before the Arizona State game, and then Arizona State proceeded to go out there and kind of bully Iowa State around the field. But we do know that Caleb Brzezina is going to get Matt Campbell confirmed that Caleb Brzezina will be back playing for the first time, after missing 4 games in a row. So that's a nice buy to have back. There was some rumors about Caleb Bacon maybe being able to come back and play, one game this season. I don't know. He had a press conference today. I didn't get a chance to watch it yet, but I did see some quotes come out of it about some guys that are going to play, and I didn't see Caleb Bacon mentioned. So I don't know if maybe the plan to play him in the bowl game is off, or if he's just playing and that's just what it is. I'm not sure. But it would be cool to see Caleb Bacon come back and play because that would not count against his medical red shirt. So he can get that no matter what. But having Caleb Brzezina back is nice. I think they saw that Malik Verdon is sitting out. I think that's probably the best for him because he needs to get healthy. I mean, we saw him in basically a robotic arm in the Big 12 title game. He needs to get healthy. He's so banged up, and he's been so banged up his whole career. It kind of sucks because he's such a talented guy, but just for whatever reason, just can't stay healthy. I don't know if he's coming back next year. I don't know if that's been decided 100%. Maybe it has been behind closed door. I don't think we've seen an official announcement from him about what his plans are. He's draft eligible. I think I'm assuming there's probably some concern from NFL teams about his health, just like for the reason that Bo Freeler's last football game of his entire life is going to be this Pop Tart Bowl. I would expect to see Bo Freeler flying around that football field, like playing like a bat out of hell. Because Bo Freeler is not going to play in the NFL. He will not pass a physical. His shoulders are gone. That said, that's a dude. Bo Freeler is a football guy. That's a guy that's going to go out there, and if he breaks both of his arms playing that game against Miami to try to win that game, I think he would. I think he would. He's gladly going to sacrifice whatever physical health he's got left to win that football game, because it is going to be his last one ever. He's just not playing in the NFL. It's just not in the cards for him, and it's not because he's not good enough. It's just because the injuries have just piled up. So, I expect to see Bo Freeler out there flying around at 100 miles an hour. Malik Verdon has got potentially an NFL future in front of him. So I don't know if he plans to leave this year, if he plans to play his senior season. I'm not sure, but I do know that regardless of what his plans are for next year, sitting out this bowl game is the right move. He's way too banged up, and he needs if he can go to the NFL, he needs to get healthy for this draft process. Because he may get. I was assuming he would probably get a combine invite, but I'm not sure. So, I'm fine with Malik sitting out. But from everything that I've heard, everybody in Iowa State is playing. Jalen Noel's playing. Jaden Higgins is playing. I think everybody I've seen is playing, and I believe, I guess I don't know if it's been 100% confirmed, but Cam Ward is saying that he's playing in the Pop Tart Bowl, even though he's probably going to be one of the top 3 picks in the draft. I think that's awesome. I think more players should do that. As an Iowa State fan playing specifically against him in this specific game, I kind of wish he was taking the easy way out and not playing the bowl game, because Cam Ward's a very, very good player. But, I like seeing these elite athletes come back to play the bowl games and make them meaningful again, because the national media has done more damage to bowl games than anything, just trying to convince everybody that bowl games don't matter. The only thing that matters is the playoff. And if you don't make the playoff, you're worthless. And we need to reverse that trend. And the best way to do that is to get really important players playing in the bowl game, to have the Travis Hunter playing in the Alamo Bowl, Cam Ward playing in the Pop Tart Bowl, having, they're in the playoff, but if they weren't in the playoff, having an Ashton Genty in the bowl game, having those types of guys play their last games, even though, Travis Hunter and Cam Ward will probably be 2 of the top 3 picks in the draft, and Shedeur Sanders, from what I understand, is going to play as well for Colorado in the Alamo Bowl. That might be your top 3 picks in the NFL draft. And if all 3 of those guys are playing and can show that bowl games still matter and bowl games are still important, and bowl games are still worth caring about, I think that's a step in the right direction. So, from what I can tell, both rosters are going to be basically full strength. Now, we do know that Miami's top receiver this season. I was going to try to find his name real quick. They're one of the top receivers is out with injury, and the other one, it seems like it's up in the air as far as whether they're going to play or they're going to get ready for the draft. I was going to see if I can find that again, but this is Miami's got a very talented roster. It's not an issue of whether or not Cam Ward's going to have anybody to throw to. Like, with Arizona State, I mean, they have good receivers, but we didn't know any of them. We were like, are they going to have anybody to throw to? Well, I mean, they found people to throw to. Miami has dudes. Miami has lots of guys they can throw to. So Isaiah Horton is their top receiver. Isaiah Horton is reportedly planning to enter the transfer portal, and at least one report indicates record-setting leading receiver Xavier Restrepo might choose to sit out as well. I'm quoting Rob Gray's article over on Cyclone Fanatic, basically saying Miami's top two receivers may not be playing in the Pop Tart Bowl, but if they've got Cam Ward, they're going to be good. They're going to be fine. So it'll be an interesting matchup there. I want to talk a little bit about both teams since we know they're going to be pretty much full strength. I want to do a little bit of kind of a statistical overview of the two. We looked at this site as well for the Arizona State game. In that game, a lot of things pointed. A lot of the general things that happen a lot pointed towards Arizona State, but we went and looked and found some stuff that Arizona State just had not been good at, which was fourth downs, converting in the red zone, things like that. And credit to Arizona State, that early fourth down conversion that they threw a long ball over the top, that was super gutsy, and they deserved to convert that. And they did a good job converting in the red zone. They bucked their trends a lot, and that's where I think we thought Iowa State might be able to get Arizona State. That said, if you're looking at this comparison here, Iowa State versus Miami in the Pop Tart Bowl, the model likes Miami. I kind of understand why here. You look at a lot of these here. Some of the discrepancies aren't huge, but some of them are notable. Miami is is maybe the best offense in the country. Almost an extra 2 yards of play there. They throw a little bit more than they pass, and when they do pass, they're completing 67% as a team, which is a full 10% higher than Rocco's 57.7. So not great there. They are at almost 56% on third down conversions, which is really good. That's an exceptional number, and they are almost 91% red zone scoring. This is a very efficient offense that finishes drives. They keep the chains moving, and they score points. Now, Miami's defense, despite their opponent yards per play here, Miami's defense leaves a little bit to be desired. Iowa State has the better defense overall. They give up a lot of big plays. I believe they're like 107th in the country as far as stopping defensive plays, pass plays, especially over 50 yards. So that they are vulnerable deep. They will give up long throws, but they are also in the top 20 in the country in forcing sacks. So their pass rush is very good. That's a very, very aggressive defense that, they're going to try to get you behind the sticks immediately and just basically dare you to try to beat them over the top. Some teams have, some teams haven't. That is an interesting proposition for Iowa State because you've got two receivers, both of which can be dangerous downfield threats. We've seen Jalen Noel catch balls over the top of the defense multiple times this season. But we also know that the pass protection, especially in the last half of the season or so, has not been great. The teams that have had good pass rushes, UCF, especially you look at UCF, Kansas, both have had good pass rushes and have given Iowa State a lot of trouble, in Texas Tech as well. Despite the rest of Texas Tech's defense being horrible, they actually have a decent pass rush. Those teams have given Iowa State a lot of trouble, and Miami's got the best pass rush you're going to see this year. I don't know if they're going to need to just leave a running back there in pass protection, use an extra tight end in pass blocking, whatever it is, but you cannot let Miami get you behind the sticks. Because if they can pin their ears back in the pass rush and get you trying to convert second and third and longs, it's going to be a long day because you're going to be punting it right back to the best offense in college football. Now, it's worth noting that Iowa State's defensive scheme is sort of built to contend with an offense kind of like Miami's, where they really want to move the ball down the field. But this is going to be you're looking at like like kind of a Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, Oklahoma teams where like your defense is going to slow them down. They might have the quote unquote worst offensive game of the season, but their worst offensive game of the season is usually still one of everybody else's one of their best. For most people, it's one of their best. So you're trying to slow them down, maybe create a turnover or two, and trying to let your offense keep the ball and really milk the clock, keep the chains moving, try to put together some long drives. That said, I don't think it would be wise for Iowa State to get overly conservative in this one, because I think one, the old water boy quotes like, "Man, it's the last game of the season, can't hold anything back now," that kind of thing. But it's also just a matter of Miami's probably going to hit a shot on you, probably going to hit a shot or two on you. That's just what's going to happen. They're just too good. They're too fast to not do that. I think it's worthwhile taking some long drives and trying to keep the ball away from Miami's offense. But you can look. This is a strength on strength matchup. Most of these defensive markers point towards Iowa State having the better defense, and most of the offense points towards Miami having the better offense, which all that makes sense. I think it's worthwhile to putting. It's always worthwhile going on those long touchdown drives to get points on the board and take the ball away from the opposing offense. But I don't think this is a game where Iowa State should get scared to take a shot or two. Miami's defense has shown to be vulnerable. And if you can take some well-calculated shots where if they start biting on the run a little bit, throw a play action in there, get a backside RPO slant, something like that, where you can really take advantage of them being an overly aggressive defense. And I think this is a game where a stop and a score could go a long ways. This might be a shootout. Game could be in the 30s, could be in the 40s. Both offenses are capable of doing that. It's just going to be a matter of how Iowa State wants to approach this thing. I think Miami will try to do a 2017 Big 12 impression where they're just going to try to go down and score. Because I know Miami knows that they can win it. They're more capable of winning a shootout than Iowa State is. And Iowa State is going to want to bog this game down. They're going to want to make it ugly and slow and just garbage as they can, and try to win the turnover battle, try to win the penalty battle, try to win the field position battle. I think that's a fine strategy, but I don't want them to get overly conservative. If you think you can take a shot and get a score on an explosive play, you take it, because getting points up on the board like that is going to be super, super valuable. It's going to be more valuable to you than an extra minute or two off the clock. I just think I want to see. This is a game that if Iowa State's going to finally, I hate saying it like this because I know like every football team wants to win games, but this is a perfect opportunity for Iowa State football to take a step forward on the national stage as far as what kind of program it wants to be. This is a type of situation where Iowa State can decide that we're going to be what Arizona State was to us in the Big 12 title game, where they were the aggressors. They were the ones that decided they were going to win the football game and they were going to do it on their terms. This is an opportunity for Iowa State to do something like that, where you can go out against a national program that was, basically a fringe playoff team, maybe, and people argue that maybe they should have been a playoff team. And they've got an awesome quarterback. They've got a high flying offense that can do a lot of stuff. This is a game where if Iowa State goes out and can dictate tempo, they can take shots where they need it, and they can go out and decide that we are going to be the team that decides how this football game goes, and not try to be overly conservative, try to play not to lose type of thing. Go out and win the football game. This feels like an awesome opportunity for Iowa State to do that, because you truly do have nothing to lose. Like, you losing a close game to a really good Miami team in the Pop Tart Bowl is not going to affect your status as a program. People are like, oh, it's still a good season, still had 10 wins, all this. But this is also your opportunity to win to go to 11 wins, to win a big bowl game against a big brand, This would be a good reputation bowl game for Iowa State, especially if you can go out there and play really well and dictate this game and really show that, not only Iowa State, but the Big 12 in general is to be contended with going forward, and that it's not just one random team getting hot because they have a guy like Cam Scadaboo that's gotten hot at the end. Yeah, this is Iowa State's opportunity. So it's a big opportunity for the program to pick up a big win over a big brand, and I think they've got a good shot at it. You just can't be overly conservative. I think you need to take your shots where you can get them. If you take a shot and it just doesn't work out, that's okay, because you're forcing Miami to sit back and stretch out that defense just a little bit, and that creates a little more running room for Carson Hansen, Abu Sama, whoever. I would assume Jalen Jackson is not playing in this bowl game. For anybody that somehow does not know, he was arrested and charged with an OWI the weekend of the Big 12 championship game back in Ames. I would be kind of surprised if he played. Maybe Matt Campbell decides, this is he's out of eligibility. So maybe he just decides, well, this is it, whatever, go out and play, or, go out and play and get a couple carries and be done with it, type of thing. But it also wouldn't surprise me if he, put his foot down and said, I'm sorry that it's your last game, but you violated our team culture. This is not what our program's about. And we're not going to reward this, even if it is your last game. So I would assume Jalen Jackson is not playing. From a running game standpoint, I don't know that it hurts that much. I would guess we will probably see some Dylan Lee this game, since bowl games do not count towards your red shirt. I would guess we will see Dylan Lee, and assuming that we do see Dylan Lee, I would think that would basically rule Jalen Jackson completely out of the game. So we'll hopefully we'll get to see a little bit of him, but I'd really like to see them limit some turnovers, get some momentum early, and just take care of business for one time. You can't end the season with two games like the Big 12 title game and then, laying an egg against Miami in the Pop Tart Bowl. It just doesn't look good. It makes the rest of the season look a little fraudulent. Like you got, a lot of bad teams when they were playing bad, type of thing. And you just kind of got lucky to get into 10 wins and all that. But it's just, I don't know. I want to see them do well. I want to see Iowa State continue to legitimize itself on the national stage. It's just you got to start showing up in these big moments when the lights are bright. You need Iowa State to start showing up and to convince the rest of the country that this is a program that deserves to be considered. So, okay. So Steven in the press conference said Jackson was suspended for the game. So that's it. Jalen Jackson's not playing. I would assume that means we're going to see Dylan Lee at some point. I don't know for sure, but I would assume we will. So, I think this is a game that Iowa State certainly can win. It's going to be an uphill battle when you have Cam Ward on the other side of the ball. But if Iowa State takes care of business, doesn't commit any bad turnover, if Rocco doesn't throw a pick again, and if Iowa State can limit its penalties and just take care of business, you can win this game. You absolutely can. It's going to be an uphill battle. Miami is very good. So my pick right now, my brain is saying Miami is the smart pick here, but I will be dead and buried in the ground before I pick against Iowa State in a football game. Give me the good guys, 28-24. So if anybody's got any other questions that they've got about, either the portal and recruiting or about this game, or if you got any comments about this game, about what you think, how this is going to go, definitely can take those for another few minutes here for sure. Otherwise, leave them in the comments. If you're viewing this after the live stream, definitely let me know what you guys think about this game. If what Iowa State needs to do to win this game. It's one of those for Iowa State, as it has been all season. I think it comes down to turnovers. I think it comes down to penalties and quote unquote winning in the margins. That is going to continue to be Iowa State's path to victory against these really talented teams. So I appreciate everybody tuning in to the live portion. Appreciate everybody finding this later on YouTube after the live stream's over. And I hope everybody has a good holiday season. I don't know that I probably will not be doing a show next week since Tuesday is Christmas Eve. I know I've got Christmas things, and I know that a lot of you guys all have plans for the holiday week. So I may come in and jump. I might jump in on like Thursday or Friday and do just a quick hit type of thing. But I probably would not plan on me being here next Tuesday for a full show just because of the holiday. So if I don't see any of you before the Pop Tart Bowl, everybody have a great holiday season, and we will see you guys all on the Saturday. Since it is a bowl game and I will not be there, we will do a post game. So after the game, after the Pop Tart Bowl, tune in here. We'll be doing a live call-in show / we'll be taking questions and people can jump in, and actually, you can jump in and actually, do a kind of a radio call-in type show, if you want to do something like that. So we'll be doing a live post game after the Pop Tart Bowl. So if I don't see you all before the holiday, have a good holiday. We will see you after the Pop Tart Bowl for the live post game. Everybody, thank you for watching, and we will see you guys all next time. Go Cyclones.